Brian Jagger, you are back, sir.
I'm back.
You're back. You know, you might
Happy to be.
Well, thank you. First off, thank you for coming. And you might be like one of the fastest like return guests I've had.
That's an honor.
Yeah, you're welcome. Listen, you and I talked, you do AI, you're the head of the GuardRailz AI system. You're integrated into College of Western Idaho and a bunch of other universities. You are really at the ground floor of AI in our higher education system, as well as some high schools, right?
Yeah, K-12 and even elementary.
Okay. This is particularly important because Donald Trump, our President Trump, recently passed an executive order. I think it was yesterday or today. Yesterday.
Yeah, today is the 24th. He signed it on April 23rd.
Okay. To put AI in all classrooms.
Yeah, I mean, the mandate basically says to get there. So it doesn't say like every classroom has to have it by this time period, but it does say that within 90 days, the committee, the task force that he creates with this executive order has to start having the plans for integrating AI, training the teachers, and getting the teachers to use AI in the classroom as early as kindergarten.
Okay, here we go. I happen to have some friends that are very, very tech cautious, and I have a great appreciation for that. I'm not tech averse. I love technology. I teach my boys technology, but I'm very careful with how and why I'm teaching to them. Somebody told me a great analogy. They're like, look, if you want your kid to be a pharmacist when they grow up, which is great, would be a pharmacology, awesome. You don't give them a bunch of drugs when they're 10, right? So like, if we want people to utilize AI, just throwing or utilize technology effectively, in my mind, it's like throwing just more technology at people at a younger and younger age doesn't necessarily get you the outcome you want. And this is a concern that a lot of people I know have. Help me understand what the integration and benefit in a classroom might be. Let's start at high school because, we were chatting college last time. Let's start in the high school level. Yeah. Where is the integration of AI on the teacher and student level in high school? Like, what are the low-hanging fruits where somebody could say, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense?
I mean, for me, the real low-hanging fruit is the customization. It's for the students. So our tagline is no learner left waiting. And it's for if you're a student that's a little advanced from the rest of your class or you're a student that's a little bit behind, you don't have to wait for the teacher to get to you to help you with where you're at. If you have content that's being adapted to where you're at as you're going through it.
Okay, let's pick a subject. Let's say like math.
Great.
Okay. And again, I think this, low-hanging fruit. So what you're kind of saying is, look, you got a class of 30 kids. And let's say they're all in the same class, right? They're in Algebra 2 Trig.
Perfect.
Okay. You got Johnny or Susie over here that are like doing really, really well. And then you got, Matt and Brian over here that are not doing really well. And as they're working through, the teacher can't be everywhere at once. So again, the classic problem is Johnny and Susie do really well, finish the problem set or get the concept really quickly. And
now they're bored.
And Matt and Brian feel like idiots. We're like, oh my God, Johnny and Susie again. I hear they're dating. Anyway, they get it fast. We feel dumb. I understand this. I ran an SAT class and I would have students from like the 30 and 40th percentile all the way up to students in the same class that were in, like the 95th plus percentile.
Right.
The way I accommodated this, one, the classrooms were very small. So only 6 students at once, max. And I would revolve around the room. And if I knew Johnny and Susie were ahead, I'd be like, hey, you guys, you're going to do only the even problems and you're going to start on number 30 out of 60 problems, right? So just start picking off and go really fast. And then for, Johnny and Susie, I'd be like, you're going to do every problem. You're starting at number 1, right? And I would revolve around the room addressing issues as they came up. That is not a possibility in a standard classroom, right? Like I could barely do it with 6 kids.
Yeah, with 6.
So I have a great appreciation for adaptability. Is essentially what you're proposing is, okay, we have a system similar to that within a classroom of a single subject like math. And we have it so that Johnny and Susie over here are on some kind of computer program that's adapting and challenging them just above what they're doing, and then bringing along Brian and Matt on the left side.
Yeah, that's exactly how it's working, is that, and it's not even proposing. This is what's working right now. And so you're going through, we're falling a little bit behind. It's showing that we're having a hard time understanding, but it gets down to the granular. Like, what are we not understanding? Let's focus on that. Because it might be that if we're, let's say, 2 days behind everybody else because we're just not getting it. But it's because there's one part of an equation that we're just not understanding. And then the AI goes, well, Brian learns really well when you give him Star Wars analogies, and it explains it like a Star Wars analogy, going, this equation is like when this happened in the Star Wars movie in this part, whatever that analogy is. And then all of a sudden it clicks. Well, now I just shot up because I got that concept that was holding me back. But this system's tracking how I'm learning and what propels me forward. So it knows that I like Star Wars. It knows that my favorite sport is football. It knows the things that I want to do and equates it to that and explains it in the terminology that I understand. And I mean, by me, an individual at my level. So nobody's getting the same content. Every single student is getting the content delivered to them for them. And that's what we mean by they're not left waiting, because it's tailored to them. What are they struggling with? Let's focus on that. Let's not worry about the stuff that you're excelling at. Let's focus on those challenge issues. And if you're ahead, great. You're ahead. Let's start working on the next stuff. Let's start or increasing your comprehension of the stuff that we're already working on from comprehension to mastery level. Let's continue working with you. But nobody should, with the technology that we have, nobody should have to ever sit and wait.
And this mirrors a very traditional learning process anyway, in that if I'm working with a student one-on-one, and I realize that the student gets Pythagorean theorem really well, but they really are bad at circles, then I just adapt and say like, okay, you got this. Let's focus a little bit more over here. And then I don't give them problems that they can get easily. I give them problems that they can piece together, and I start challenging them and whatever. And I had this girl, Alina, I think her name was. She was a sixth grader. This is one of my really old tutoring clients, and she really struggled with math. And what I realized is she could not, like, if you gave her word problems, like, okay, you get, you have this, rudimentary math, like how much do you have left over? She kind of struggled with it. She'd been bounced around a couple different school districts because her parents moved for work. And one day I figured, I'm like, all right, if I give you all of these math problems the way they are in the book, you're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. But if I change them to shopping analogies, you get them instantly. I'm like, okay, you go to the mall, you get a tankini, you get a hair bun, and you get this other. This is how much money do you have left over? She's like, oh, $25.
Right.
I was like, how in the, like, and that was her thing. Like, she really liked shopping. She liked, whatever.
In this modern world with the technology that we have, with the generative AI, and I always like to try to emphasize generative AI, because AI has been in education. It's been in everything we've done for decades at this point. Right. It's the generative AI capabilities that have really surfaced in the last few years and become so good in the last few years that are changing what we're doing. And with those tools, we can adapt to everybody. But to be clear, that doesn't take the teacher out of it. You still have to have that teacher, that human in the loop, understanding who these people are. Because there's a lot more to it. When we talked last time, it does, you write jokes, it doesn't make you Dave Chappelle. If you get this learning and this education and it's adapted to you, that's still not going to understand that maybe there was an incident in the school yesterday, or maybe that there's some pressures going on in your personal life, and teachers with that human nature pick up that there's some additional challenges. They get to really be educators instead of babysitters when they're focused on managing what the students are learning versus managing a classroom of students.
Okay. This is where I was hoping we'd eventually get to, which is, okay, nobody who's ever engaged in education would argue that there's no value in the AI model of like adapting, understanding the student. Let me give you some Star Wars, Darth Vader.
Oh, I've heard some.
Well, like, yeah, but I think it's just plain as day, because again, this mirrors the process I would go through. It just does it instantaneously, right? Like when I would prep kids for the what is it? The subject test, the math 2 subject test, right? When students would take this as part of a application if they were going into like engineering schools or math schools. And again, it's more advanced math, and it's not just stuff on the SAT and ACT. It's like, no, this is SAT 2. This is, again, subject test. No, that's not the subject. No, that is a subject test. I'm keeping AP tests and subject tests all of a sudden got boggled. It's been a couple years now. But the point is,
I got you.
Working through this, again, same thing. I would work with students through individual tests until they hit a snag. I'm like, got it, go on to the next problem. And in the time it took them to do the next problem, I'd make like 4 analogous previous problems that they screwed up on. I'm like, okay, stop, do these. And then we'd work through and patch that hole. And then we'd go back on the path to progress. So we continue identifying things they missed. Once they missed something, I would make analogous problems instantaneously, feed those into the machine, they'd patch that up, and we solved that issue, and then we moved on to the next issue. This is exactly like...
I'm laughing because one of the new things that we've been working on at GuardRailz is content review and assessment. And what it does is it basically does an assessment at the beginning of a chapter on where you're at. And then it tells you what areas you can just skip. You don't need to read this section, this section, this section. We're gonna go straight to this section because you didn't demonstrate comprehension yet. Let's go through this, and then once you demonstrate it, we're gonna keep moving on. But it bypasses the things they've already demonstrated knowledge of because there's no need to reinforce what you've already got a comprehension of.
Again, I appreciate this. What I'm trying to figure out is, okay, if you have the computer effectively teaching, okay, which is like, I'm going to take you through these problems, answer the questions, then we'll, blah, blah. And then you're like, well, the educators then get to like add the human element. Part of the problem that I would think would crop up is that human, the teacher, has not been able to develop that human relationship and support and understanding of the student. Because when I would work in a classroom, right, I'd be like, hey, Susan, like, no sweat, you got this. Listen, I know 55 is hard. It's one of the, but give it another shot. And she knew that I'm going to come to you. Just, you got to try it again first. And then with, Brian and Matt, I'd be like, guys, like, let's just go like nice and cool. Right. And so we developed this dynamic relationship where somebody was comfortable being challenged. Somebody was comfortable listening to me, feeling like I had faith in them. And that was part of the academic and educational experience for these kids. And then when they needed me for something else, right? I got a text from this girl from her and her mom. She was, like 17, 18, she's going off to college, but applying. And she was like, listen, this is like really saving my life because they had been on lockdown and she had that relationship with me where she just wanted to express appreciation. It's not like I like talked to this girl frequently or anything, and her mom reached out. She was like, listen, this is really, like, you've welcomed she needs a social interaction. She's meeting friends from other schools in your class. She can't go to her normal school. But again, it was that personal relationship, but that relationship was derived through effort together, right? If you hook somebody up to a computer and you're just acting as a counselor, because like, you broke up with your boyfriend today, you don't seem happy. It's like, I don't have the relationship with you where I've gone through the struggle with you.
Yeah, I see what you're saying on that. And it's not like you should walk into a classroom and log in and all you're doing is AI lessons or lessons powered by AI. It is because really you don't even know what to use AI to do until you have some baseline education. You don't know to, like, for example, one of the concerns is how young AI gets used, or I should say generative AI, right?
Sure.
Well, how does a kindergartner use it? Well, they can draw a picture and then they can tell the AI what they want that picture to be and then see how it creates new versions of it based upon what they say. So if they draw a dog and they say dog and it makes a dog and then they say dog with a fluffy tail, it's going to change the image. So they can start to understand how being more descriptive can change what the results they get. But you know what they need to do first before they can do that? Draw a dog on a paper with crayons.
Real crappy dog like I would draw. It's just something dumb. I remember drawing a horse. I was in second grade. I was like, this is the dumbest horse ever. And I was trying. I was so bad. It's like, I'm a terrible artist.
Not the artist either. But
I had a vision and I just did it with the Crayola.
But you still have to have those foundations, right? There still has to be that human. It's not like anybody should be, in my opinion, going into a classroom, starting the first thing they do is generative AI work and ending the day with generative AI and nothing in between with an actual teacher going through lessons where you're learning at the same time. And there's a huge value in hearing the same concepts at the same time and seeing the differences of how people interpret that. Because if you're doing a presentation to 30 people, there's going to be 30 different reactions and 30 different comprehensions of it. Taking that new baseline and then having generative AI help adapt so that you can take that main lesson and then adapt it to them, that's where we start to really, cook with gas.
There's a problem with, I'll use young men because I would put myself in this category, that are high energy, that are very, very hard on the seats. They're like rocking the whole time. They can't.
ADHD.
It's rough, man. And that's a real problem just in a normal classroom, right? How does this help that though?
That's actually one of the places it helps the most. I have diagnosed ADHD, and
as like an adult, could I get like accommodations somewhere?
I mean, I was meeting with another CTO of another company, and we were going over some stuff. This is about 3-4 years ago. And he asked me what kind of ADHD medicine I was on. And I said, I don't take any ADHD medicine. He's like, oh, why hasn't your doctor given you any? I was like, you think I'm ADHD? And he looks at me and he goes, oh, game, no game. And I'll never forget that.
Oh my God.
And turned out he was right. And I've learned so much since that adult diagnosis. And it's been really helpful in identifying why I love engineering and I hate other stuff. I mean, chemistry is, I use that as my example in building GuardRailz. Hate chemistry, did not do well at chemistry. I was a pretty good student in high school, failed chemistry. And it just wasn't my thing. And it wasn't my thing, and I had no interest in doing it, and so I just couldn't get into it. One of the things that I first did when we developed the system was, how can we explain chemistry to me to where I'd find it interesting? And that was one of my inspirations when designing the system. It's because if you're not interested in the content, it's painful. It's literally painful to try to go through it. So that's where creating the analogies from things that you're interested in. So we did one test where it was I can't remember what the chemical elements were, but it was like this element pushes its energy away towards this element, which then receives it and consumes it. Kind of like when Jerry and George are at the diner and Jerry pushes his plate of spaghetti across and George eats it. And
you're like, I love spaghetti.
Right.
Like, yeah, get after it, George.
Well,
Jerry's an idiot.
That was a Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So a Seinfeld reference.
Yeah.
But it was using that so it was using characters, using things that to explain the concept more. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny. Okay, I get it. That resonates with people. And especially if you have ADHD or you are that, anxious in your seat, make it for me. Make it interesting for me.
I got a Seinfeld to explain cloud seeding. You ready for this? It's like when George orders his tea and then squeezes the water out of the tea bag, and when he's hanging out with Elaine, or no, Jerry does that. Jerry squeezes out his tea bag. But the point is, cloud seeding is very much like that squeeze. You pick up the tea bag has liquid in it, and the cloud seeding with silver iodide just squeezes it a little bit to get that liquid out. But it's the same tea that was in the cup in the first place. It was just up in the tea bag. We just coax it out.
See, now that actually makes sense.
There you go. We're solving problems today. I didn't even need AI for that one. I'm 99% sure it was Jerry that squeezes his tea bag.
I haven't seen it in a minute.
Listen to me. Let's find out right now.
All right.
Siri knows. Does Jerry Seinfeld squeeze his tea bag in the show Seinfeld? Is it going to get it?
It doesn't understand.
The hot tub, 115th episode.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway. So point is,
that is a great example of how creating but that's great. You have that one, but there's so many topics. There's so many things. And each person's going to resonate with a different example, and maybe not each person, but the more adapted to the individual person, the more they're going to, I mean, and that's not me saying that, that's the research saying that the more customized, the more personalized, the more comfortable people feel, and then they advance forward.
So what do we say to people who look at, videos of Chinese elementary schools where they have, like the neural band on their head and they're like all in front of screens, or even what would you say? Let's say me.
And they have the monitors that
the monitors
let them know that somebody's
paying attention or not.
Yeah.
Or me, I had an experience, like my family's had an experience where one of my kids in second grade, and even first and second grade at the same elementary school, were watching TV off their school administered technology. And the question was like, why do they even have this technology? Why are they having free time on this technology? And like they're at school. There's that scene from Pursuit of Happiness when Will Smith drops off his son at the daycare, right, in like Chinatown or something in San Francisco, and they have the Love Boat on, and she's like, "It's history." I'm not going to do the Chinese accent, so I'll get in trouble. But he's like, "That's TV." She's like, "It's the Navy," and he's like, "That's Love Boat," or something, right?
Navy,
right? And there was this disgust and frustration that he had as a parent, being like, "Dude, can you teach him something? He's watching TV." And I've witnessed, like my family's had experiences where kids are using school administered tech to literally just watch TV in classrooms during the school day, not in a manner that's like, oh, you get detention now. It's like, okay, yeah, you can have free time on your Chromebook. Like, how do we?
That's detention.
And that's it. Right. So there's this tension of
the
like,
difference between that and what they're doing in the classroom is essentially nothing.
Right. The Love Boat versus the classroom, exact same thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's also an immediate repulsion to the idea that you're going to like hook these kids up like the Matrix, and you're going to like run them through these programs, and you're going to have these like little 7-year-olds like eyes glued to a screen, or even 12-year-olds. That's an anxiety that I think a lot of people have.
Yeah. And that sounds horrible. And I don't want that for my future grandkids. I think that the ability to adapt what we've determined they need to have as learning outcomes, being able to adapt the lessons to what they need to learn to them so that they can understand and comprehend and absorb it better. That's my mission. That doesn't mean that we should just say, here's a laptop, here's a Chromebook, here's a tablet, and now it controls everything, and you've got a teacher in the front that's reading Parade magazine, flipping through it, and just keeping their eyes up and looking to make sure that the kids are actually doing the assignments, which they would already know anyways, because if they were all run by AI, there'd be real-time tracking about where everybody was. That's not the point. It's
if I ever saw a teacher reading Parade magazine, the first question in my head is, where did you get a magazine?
Wait. Yeah, I am dating myself.
Yeah, right. But I can see a different version of rolled out AI. Okay, at the end of the day, there's you're not on computers at all day long. Okay, and you're working through. Let's go back to math. You're working through the lesson. You're working through things, and at the end of the day, somehow a teacher inputs level of comfort with the material for every single student. Right? Like from a scale of 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, right? And the AI then instantaneously makes customized homework for them to work through that night, right? So you're learning together in class, and then there's going to be some kind of assessment where the AI can reproduce or change things, depending on what happens, to try to get everybody to the same page. The people that are excelling, they can go off into acceleration land. The people that are lower end can get to the base level of understanding so they can show up the next day. But you bring people along in like an in-person teaching mechanism, and then integrate with, asynchronous work or something of that nature.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about what the executive order talks about, and where I think a lot of people like myself are focused on, is it's not just about what the AI can do as far as adapting and helping with the education, then creating a custom homework assignment or what have you. It's also about how to improve what you get from the AI. Because the more you use it, the more you're going to be ready to use it in advanced applications in the future. It's not going away. It's going to be used in every aspect of business and commerce and everything that's going to be happening in engineering, government, name the industry. There's going to be heavy GAI use in the future. So it's not just about using it in helping you learn stuff. That's a big part of it. But it's also you learning how to maximize, you the student, learning how to maximize what you can get it to do for you.
I get that 100. I'll tell you right now. I sent out it was a grant proposal. I sent a grant proposal. I've never written a grant proposal in my life, but I generated one yesterday in like 10 minutes because I was good at the prompt, and then I tweaked it as I went, and then I sent that out, and they were like, "This is great. Thank you very much." So I appreciate,
that's a great example.
Right. Like, man, grant writers, this is going to be a rough go for them. That like you're essentially fixing the buggy on the horse and carriage, man. Like this is not going to be a good one for you.
Which means that if you're an expert in grant writing, you need to become an expert prompt engineer. Really, everybody needs to become an expert prompt engineer. That's a big part of what we're trying to focus on. As part of what we're doing is also educating teachers and students how to use prompt engineering. Because if you're a grant writer and you're realizing that people can start going to various AI applications and saying, help me write me this grant, well, it's going to do okay based on what it has. But a grant writer who knows the ins and outs of grant writing and knows how to communicate that to the generative AI, they're worth more than they were before or than the AI by itself.
Okay, but here's my question then. Okay, if I may. When do we mess around with that? And I will tell you, I got a kid in 5th grade right now who goes to a no tech school. Okay. So literally they don't even, again, no tech. So he's diagramming sentences and stuff. Like he's doing classical education. Is he behind, like, is he somehow behind the education curve for people?
So I'll tell you something that I thought was fascinating. We did a survey of teachers and I can't remember how many questions, it's like 20 some odd questions. And one of the questions on there was, do you want the AI to point out grammar and spelling mistakes in the prompt? And I thought that was going to be a very popular request. Like, hey, when Timmy puts in, the brown dog is red, whatever. That's a horrible
How about
example.
the pack of wolves are chasing the caribou? There's a grammar mistake there.
Great.
If anybody caught it.
So whatever that is. And they spell caribou wrong.
Let me tell you, the pack of wolves is actually singular. It's a collective singular because it's a single pack. We don't care what it's a pack of. The pack of wolves are chasing the caribou. The actual subject is the pack. So it should be the pack is chasing the caribou. But
Fair
people
enough.
get screwed up with the preposition. They're like pack of, flock
Makes
of birds,
sense.
pod
That's a great
of whales.
example.
Right.
So what we were talking about was making it to where when you type that in, and let's say you spelled caribou wrong,
Sure.
it would explain exactly what you just said.
Right.
And it would also then show,
Right.
this is how you spelled caribou and this is how you should spell it. Was the lowest ranked feature on our entire list. Nobody cared. And when I say nobody, I'm talking about teachers. This is a group of teachers from all different subject matters, all different walks of life. That wasn't important to them. And I thought that was fascinating. It actually surprised me. I actually expected it to be at least middle. It was the lowest thing. If you type in your prompt, AI will automatically fix it. I mean, unless you're just completely, you just
Yeah, sure.
tapping the keyboard. Short of that, if it can basically determine what you were trying to say, it will process it through. And that's it. And nobody's maybe being extreme, and I shouldn't talk.
You're saying nobody in the
extremes.
whole world.
Right.
You
Nobody
spoke to
ever,
everyone,
ever.
the whole world.
Every single person responded to my survey.
Yeah, right.
So the respondents did not seem to think that was a very important thing to correct. And I think that's interesting because if that's not going to be an important thing, then what your son's working on right now, I'll never need.
So it was not
I don't
an important
necessarily
thing.
agree with
it.
that.
Wasn't an important thing for them to correct, or it wasn't an important thing for the AI to point out.
It wasn't an important thing for the AI to point out.
Okay, but that could have a lot of different reasons, right? Like that could be a lot of different things. Like I want the student to be able to figure this out, right? I want to be able to manually point it out. I don't want it to correct it. For instance, like spelling. One of my kids doing a lot of spelling things, and it's humorous to me at this point because, okay, here's one. Exact same. I was thinking about this morning in the car. My grandmother during, I think it was like World War II. She did typing.
Right.
Okay. So she would do typing, and she was like, there was a gal there that could type 100 words a minute on a typewriter. I was like, oh my God. She was like, it was wild. I could only do 60 words a minute. Now, mind you, typewriter, ribbon, ink, you screw up one letter, it's over. And this woman is flying like, like hammer, the little hammers going, the whole thing. And I was thinking about that because the other day, for some reason, I'm like, did I have a stroke or something? Like, I feel like my fingers are not, like, I'm screwing up every other word. Now, mind you, did it matter? No, I have no negative feedback loop. So my capacity to type accurately, like if I was on a typewriter, oh God, I'd be at like 10 words a minute. I'd be like,
I don't know if I could do 10 words a minute.
Yeah, like I'd be really worried. Now, because the revision in the feedback loop, which is like, there's no consequence for you to misspell. There's no consequence for you to not know the spelling words or how to spell words. There's no consequence for any of this stuff. And ultimately, you either don't develop those skills or you lose those skills.
Absolutely.
Like, it's over. So do we collectively acknowledge, okay, everything AI can do, or the things that, like, those actually don't matter anymore? Is that a good position to take when we're considering the education for our youth?
No. But what is important is understanding what's being done by the AI and realizing if you do spell words better, you'll get better results. If you understand grammar and understand how to structure a sentence and basically how to ask the AI the right question, you'll get better results. That's what needs to be emphasized. And so I still think, and, you know, we'll see if I'm right or wrong in the long term, but I still think it's important to point it out, because if you point it out and say, look, this was a grammar mistake and this was a spelling mistake, and if you hadn't entered it in these, you might be able to actually get a better response. That goes to the AI literacy aspect of it. Because in theory, AI is supposed to be doing things the proper way as far as grammar, spelling, and structure, right? Like, it doesn't randomly create a misspelled word.
Sure.
It's going to try to create proper structure. In fact, that's the reason that so many people think that they can determine what's been written by AI, right? Because it's actually proper structure.
Yeah, right.
If you talk to it in proper structure, you get better responses. You get better results. And if you understand the method that I teach at College of Western Idaho for AI literacy is CART: context, audience, results, and transitions. The transitions being and then, or plus this. Right. So you're adding in those additional transitions within that. If you learn these basics and then advance them by knowing, I mean, get to the math, right? You have to know how to put the math equation in to be able to get the right responses out. That's especially an issue with generative AI. Generative AI is not great at math. It's one of the reasons why we don't rely completely on generative AI for the math equations. We actually use hard-coded math expressions so that we're getting definitive answers through our platform, not just what the AI is coming up with.
Is it really bad? Because even when I was doing SAT tutoring, and my last year was like 2021, there were kids that, you know, I would actually look at work and be like, hey, how'd you get that answer? They're like, oh, number one way I knew somebody was cheating, I did it on a separate piece of paper. Well, you know what? Do me a solid. And I'd circle every single answer and then erase all of it. So, you know, like everybody had an erase mark. I'm like, can you just write out? I'd love to just see it. And they're like, oh, like you see them go white.
Right.
Because what they would do, and they all had this, we all knew it, is they could just take a picture of the problem with their cell phone and then get the answer, right? Then it would explain the entire thing. And the district knew this. It came out, somebody required, did like a Freedom of Information Act and got all the emails the district was firing around about, I can't remember what it was called, like math something or other, right? Basic stuff. But again, cell phone, take a picture and this program pumps it out. So it's like, okay, that AI is doing pretty well with solving problems and understanding exactly what's going on.
I mean, they're better than they have been, but they're still, I mean, if you get into advanced, especially college level math, they're...
Oh yeah, I was doing,
yeah,
this is like high school.
There's
math.
definitely,
yeah.
But, and also the word problems. And especially if you mix, this is just one of those like oddities. If you mix word numbers and numeric numbers, it really has a hard time.
Like if you write 75, but you actually write it out and then you put a 12 with like a 1 and a 2, it's like, oh my God, I can't.
Yeah, no, it has a hard time with that. It has a hard time digesting because of the tokenization. I mean, there's a whole like AI science, computer science lesson about why that is.
You should get teachers that they're like, write me a math test in a way that an AI couldn't read it. but a human could. And then it's like, oh, let me tell you what I can't read.
Right. Well,
right. 1,000 written out and then like 27 with a 2 and a 7. And then I was like, oh, my head.
It has a hard time when you start getting into that stuff. And so, but if you don't know the basics, you don't know that it's wrong.
Right.
And so the foundations and having the human in the loop is still so critical, and it's going to be. And I do like the emphasis in the executive order on training teachers on how to maximize the benefits of generative AI.
Okay, talk to me about this, because I met a gal like a year or so ago who, God, man, her heart was in the right place. She's like, listen, there's human trafficking here. I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard. Like I don't know any like real specific details, but she's like, and what happens is a lot of times we find out about this through school systems, or it happens enough that she's like, it happens in school systems. It's like, okay, like understood that. She wanted to engage the public school system and get the administration to put in place like traffic identification training, trafficking training for the teachers, and like have all these different things. And talking to somebody in law enforcement about it, they're like, listen, that would be great if every single teacher knew how to spot human trafficking. We kept them like up to snuff, and like one kid saved makes the whole thing worth it. All this stuff. They're like, but dude, how much are we already asking from our teachers? Like sometimes you got a 3rd grade teacher who just wants to be a 3rd grade teacher. Like, yeah, you got somebody who's teaching science in middle school or high school. Yeah, they might be geeking out on like, yeah, let's use this AI or something. But it's like, but you also are just going to have like, 7th grade English teachers is like, I don't want to know about AI. That's why I'm a 7th grade English teacher.
Well, unfortunately for them, understanding generative AI is knowing how to read. It is that level going forward.
That's going to be rough for a lot of teachers, man.
Well, they need to hear it now. If
you heard it here first.
Not knowing how to interact and prompt with generative AI is essentially saying you don't know how to read. It is. I mean, there's a reason it's called AI literacy. It is you are illiterate if you don't know. I mean, let me rephrase. Going forward in the next 2 to 3 years, not knowing how to prompt properly will be the new definition of literacy. Not AI literacy, literacy.
And effectively, this is just the next iteration of human tool utilization. Like at some point, I saw this video a long time ago. A buddy of mine sent it to me. He was like really geeking out about hammers. Like, I know that seems ridiculous, but they're like really nice carpentry hammers where you can set a nail and drive it on like boom, bop, right? And they're lighter. Roofers have hammers that are like super light, very, very, all these different kinds of woods, densities, the whole bit, right? He was geeking out about hammers. He sent me this video of these guys that were like, obviously, like expert craftsmen with framing. And so he was like, yeah, let's do this. He had these different equations. They framed out a house just with hand hammers like crazy. He was just like, boop, boop. And there was like one drive, you just set, slam. And these guys went through and like framed this whole building super fast. And they were explaining what they're doing as they're doing it. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And then my handyman came over one day, Joe. And Joe just had a Pazload nail gun. And we were doing some stuff. He was like, and Joe's like this old, at the time he was like 75. Joe's a savage. He's cranky. He wears his old like army vet hat. He's always farting. It's terrible. And Joe he's like these skinny little old Italian dude arms. And he's like, he's always yelling. He's like, what are you doing? But Joe wasn't swinging a hammer like he could.
Right.
But he also had this tool that made him infinitely better, and way the longevity of Joe was like, I don't need to hurt my elbow. I don't need to I'm not slamming. He's like, so is this essentially just the next great iteration of, look, if you don't have these tools, like maybe, let's say I was really skilled at writing. It's like, all right, man, look, maybe you can generate grants really fast. Like you're like Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox, man. You can cut down trees like nothing. Like, all right. But a mediocre dude with a chainsaw is going to be able to slice them down too. And we can be mad about this, but chainsaw versus axe, right? Like hammer versus Pazload nail gun. Like which are you going to select if you're an employer?
And I think it's more extreme. And the reason it's more extreme using both of those analogies is The nail gun's far more expensive than a hammer. There's additional needs for it. Either if it's if it's battery powered, you have to make sure you're charging it. There are additional costs and requirements of that. The generative AI that's available right now is at such a low cost. You can't afford not to use it. Same thing with the chainsaw. Now you've got gas. You got to have some skill set level. You got to be able to understand how to use that. There's additional cost. It's not just a good ROI for generative AI. It's become ridiculously good compared to what it would cost. The grant writer example, going and paying a grant writer versus, and here's the thing, not just that it can do a similar job, but I did a grant application and there were 30 questions, and some of them were upload a file. Some of them were answer this information, provide this information. I was able to give it, I said, okay, here's all the questions that it's asking me. Go through it. Here's my information. Answer every question you can, and then one by one, ask me the questions you can't, and then update your answers as you ask me.
You are a monster. You are a monster, sir.
It initially had 10 questions for me, and it ended up asking me 3 questions because I was able to get the answers to it within the first 3 questions that it needed. So it answered 30 questions by only asking me 3. And it was right.
Did you get the grant?
This was 3 days ago.
You probably got the grant.
I don't know. We just submitted in
Fingers crossed for you, my guy.
Yes.
But the point is, you were happy with the product. Like I presume you're using this example because you're like, listen, the product that it produced at the end of the day was like 10x faster,
extremely customized,
and very, very much so at least as good as you could have produced. Because if you were like, all right, it went
better
really
than
fast.
I would have produced.
Okay, so better than what you could have produced, and let's say 10x faster.
More than that. I mean, to answer that many questions and type out all the answers, and probably would have taken me at least 4 hours, and it took me probably 15 minutes for this entire process.
Brian, you know there's a grant writer listening to this that's just bawling their eyes out right now.
Well, and that's the
it's
reality.
Not our fault.
Then they need to be really good at prompt engineering, because they're going to know, because there's the other side of this, which is you have to feed it the grant information, right? So grant writing is a great example, because if you know how grants get awarded, because there's more information to make this AI better. And this is where the AI literacy comes in, right? You can go and ask it, hey, here are the 30 questions, answer them for me based upon what you know, you being the AI. Well, now I'm going to feed the AI some specific information. Okay, great. Now it knows more about what I want, but it doesn't necessarily know more about what they want. So now I have to also give it the information about the grant that is to be awarded. Okay, well, what about the previous grants that have been awarded from the same organization? What were those applications like? Can we use those as templates to feed the AI to make even better answers? Answer is yes. Knowing how to do that, those are the skills that are going to make that grant writer still valuable as a grant writer, knowing where to get that information, where to source it, how to feed it into the AI to get a much better result. Because that result is going to be 10 times better than what I got because of the additional information, because they know how to give it grant information. So in the future, and as I'm seeing it, specialists aren't going to be specialists because they have all the knowledge. It's because they know how to use the knowledge with the tools.
Which is essentially what we are now. Right? Like, let's be clear. This is just the next iteration in a long
it's just the
process
big one
of stuff. Like I had
but yes,
I got into woodworking years ago. Really enjoy woodworking and carpentry. And I got a thing called a Craig jig. I don't know if you're into, okay. So all the Craig jig does is, like, you got a board and you got another board. You can put these two bad boys together, and there will be holes, pocket holes, that go in at a 12.5-degree angle, and they go in just deep enough. You got to fix the jig just so it doesn't go too deep, doesn't go too shallow. Then they got these panhead screws that are self-tapping, which means as the screw goes in, it screws a hole for itself.
Okay.
Right. And it's a panhead, which means it hits the bottom of the hole flat. It doesn't hit it at an angle, which would split it like a wedge. Right. So, like, all these specialty things. And using this, I was able to build like dining room tables and seating in like a day. Right. And I would do them for people. I'm like, oh, dude, we could do this in 4 hours. Like, do you want 2 benches along with an 8-foot table? No problem. Like, let's go. Like, all we got to do is get the lumber, like, and we'll be done literally in like 4 hours. We'll go slow. And you just bang it out, because the joinery involved here was very, very basic. You didn't have to have like a domino dowel and like get clamps and glue. You didn't have to do like any kind of, Japanese things. None of that stuff mattered, right? The end product was functional. It worked. Now, could we have spent a month doing it and had like, tongue and groove things and have it? Yeah, like we could have done that, but I could have made 30 tables in the time it took you in a month to make your one like super specialty. And maybe yours costs like 4 times as much as mine. But remember, I made 30 of them.
Right.
Right. So like I'm way ahead. I'm like
Way
8x your income, right? All of these things, that in itself, that's a perfect example of like, technology advances, we get the same outcome. And even your dovetail stuff in Japanese joinery requires the utilization of metallurgy, right? You have to have saws and blades that are super sharp, and you have to have really good mathematics to get all of your angles right. So even that is an upgrade from the original person who knocked down a tree and was like, what do I do with this tree? Like, where am I going now? Like,
I'll just put it next to another tree. Yeah. There's my boat.
Yeah, right.
There's my boat.
Well done. Like you got a better boat than I got. But like all of this is just the next iteration of like, I got a better saw. I got a better joiner. I got a better all of these things. So people looked at me, people didn't know. They looked at me, they're like, wow, you're good at woodworking. And I knew about the other joiner. I'm like, I'm not really good at woodworking. They're like, but we can do tables and stuff, right? Like you could do things that I like. That's ultimately what this is, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about, the need for people to read before the printing press.
Right.
Right. They didn't necessarily need it because it wasn't how information was distributed.
The world that they existed in didn't require these skill sets, knowledge base, or information transmission.
But it was much more efficient once it came out. And so it made it where literacy was important. That's where we're at. It's that level that's what I want to emphasize. It's that level where we're at. And the reason being is because like when the printing press, it made it much faster, much more efficient to get information out there. Well, generative AI is making it much faster and much more efficient to get the work done. And as a result, it is the new literacy.
So the bottom line is at the end of the day, and again, there's no, you have, whatever hesitation I had about like whether or not we'll need AI, you've convinced me like 100%. I wish there was AI to do my video editing. There's not, Final Cut Pro doesn't have an AI clip on. I know other platforms have it.
Okay.
It's fine. We'll talk later. But I get it. I guess if we come back to the start of the conversation, I think what people are really worried about is 1, that AI is going to replace our human teachers. 2, that our children will get hooked into the matrix as early as like 5. And 3, that in engaging all this technology, we are somehow going to move past the basic skill sets to even do prompt engineering, which obviously required are like proper communication. You have to be able to communicate thoroughly and effectively before you can get the AI to do the right thing. Like Absolutely. If I was trying to swing a hammer, I need a base level of coordination and strength over and over and over to swing it and actually get a good result out of it, right? The hammer itself doesn't do anything unless I have these base requirements.
You can't just say make grant. When you go to the generative AI, you can't just say complete grant. You have to give it. You have to know how to communicate with it. It is a skill. It is the skill that's going to be needed going forward because these tools are so powerful and can help us with so much.
I saw this hilarious social media clip, and it was like, bro, in 2024, after using AI for 20 years, and it was this guy who was shot from the computer screen out, and it was a guy like, and he was like, it's you, and he was like a monkey, right? And he hits enter, and it's like, and the AI spits out, Apes. Hey man, exactly, like Planet of the Apes. And he's like, hey man, I'm really thankful that you like took me to the concert this week and it was great. And the guy's like, like he's hitting it because.
As if it somehow knew that he typed in those 3 letters.
Because he just wrote in thank you like this monkey, and it spat out all this stuff. And it was like asking a girl on a date. He's like you, like, and it was the funniest thing. Because I was like, that's what people are afraid of. But the irony is, of course, you need nuance in the prompting So you're not just a monkey like, because you have to be very clear and discriminatory even when it pumps out a result. Like that's the flip side of it, which is if you don't know what good writing looks like, you're not going to know if your grant application is even good.
Exactly, which part of prompting is providing examples, knowing what the outcome should be is critical. And this is whether it be an image, but that's part of why I think you could, going back to the AI in the lower grades, right? Some of these animation tools and drawing tools, and there's a feature that we're adding in that was inspired by another company that had something similar, but it will have a picture and then you have to try to describe the picture, and there's different grade levels for that, right? So you're a kindergartner and it's a picture of a flower and you go, flower, okay, what kind of flower do you think it is? Or is the day warm or is it cold? You start to ask more questions to describe what you're seeing, and then it determines whether or not you're matching what the image is. Now you get into more advanced grades and you get into technical things. Okay, here is a diagram of some of a crime scene, right? Now, what do you see in here? Describe what you see and be very specific. So now you start to learn how to explain things for law enforcement purposes. Yeah. And that's an extreme, but it's the same tool. It's the same basic concept of learning how to interpret something and then reiterate it back, and the AI can help with that. But imagine if you had 30 kids in a room, teacher having to walk around, and the assignment is draw a picture and show it to a friend and have them describe it without you telling them what it is. Well, now everybody has to go do that around the room. Teacher has to go walk around and have a conversation with every single one of them. With AI, you could do it 5 times in that time period with everybody, and then have some basic results that the teacher can then absorb and help guide.
I'll tell you what, man, I'm never, ever, ever buying a coloring book again. Like I just realized
you can also make them whenever you want to.
Yeah. Like I like summer curriculum, summer curricular enrichment, like additional problems, like all of these different things. My son, one of my younger son recently got this art book that I thought was really slick. He came down once. It was like 6:45 on a Saturday. I'm like drinking coffee. I'm like barely alive. And he comes in, he's like, check out my rocket. And I was like, that actually, did you draw that? And he's like, yeah, I drew it. And what I realized is we got him this art book, and it went step by step to like, okay, like here's the big circle for the fuselage. And then it like gave little wings and blah, blah. And he drew this really cool rocket. Awesome. And I thumbed through, I really like art, and I thumbed through the art book. I'm like, oh, this is a really slick art book. Dude, we could build 1,000 of those instantaneously and like even tell it, make it a little bit harder, make it a little bit more detailed, make it a little bit,
you don't
whatever.
Even need paper. You can just do it on the screen with a stylus.
Right. Right. Well, I like the paper. I want his pinky to get smudged from,
fair enough.
From the pencil and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Man, you know what? I neither of us actually obviously know what's going to happen in the future, but I think you make a really, really, really strong case for, look, the world has changed, and there are hesitations that people have with that, obviously. Yep. And where and how and to what level do we integrate young people with technology? Yeah, these are all very important conversations to have. But the end result, guaranteed, if you got a 5-year-old now, the end result when that person enters the workforce at, let's say, 18 or 22, the world will be using technology and expect this person to use technology aggressively and effectively, lest this person be like, a tenth of the efficiency of somebody else who's been integrated. Now, again, devil's in the details. When and how and in what way. But if we can all acknowledge there will likely be tech at the end of the rainbow here, at what point in the rainbow journey do we like jump on board, or how do we put it in? Like, let's just all get at the target, which is we need the most productive, efficient, effective, profitable, and successful and happy workforce we can possibly get.
And artistic. We also need them to be artistic. As we talked about prior, you need to have artists. You need to have people creating new things, because there needs to be new things created. So we have to have arts. We have to have teaching why a story is written the way that it's written. You need to have that human passion of, why did this character do this to this person for writing a new story? Why did you paint the duck blue? Sorry, Billy Madison reference.
I missed the Billy Madison. I missed what's the reference?
So
I can't remember.
There's a scene in there where he's showing the teacher and he says, I drew the duck blue because I've never seen a blue duck and I wanted to see a blue duck. So anyways, so.
Is that the teacher he ended up hooking up with?
No, it was the
one.
crazy one that ate paste during the
great.
break. But
Adam Sandler, man, he had a hot minute where like he was doing really well and like making these ridiculous movies. It was like him, Chris Farley, and Jim Carrey.
Oh, yeah.
David Spade. Yeah, David Spade did some good ones.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, he full on, no joke. David Spade liked one of my Instagram reels recently. And I was like, no. Because I got a notification. It was like the blue check, David Spade. I was like, that's not. And I clicked on it. It's like 5 million followers. This is the official David. I was like, David Spade, I love you, man. You're great.
Fellow podcaster. He does his podcast with Dana Carvey.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
You haven't seen that?
No.
Oh yeah, the two of them have a podcast together. They're on every week.
So this is actually one of the problems with my particular like world situation at this point is it's very hard to create and consume at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And so my entire day is wrapped around creating. And it gives me very, very little time to consume. And if I end up going down like a 5-minute rabbit hole on like Instagram or something, it's like, oh, I lost 5 minutes. I got to get back to creating, right? It's a very, because people are like, oh, I love your podcast. Have you heard about this? And I'm like, no, I haven't. I don't listen to like I don't have any time.
I am right there with you when it comes to the AI and education stuff. There's a lot of folks that say, why aren't you posting more on LinkedIn about it? Why aren't you writing more content about what's going on in this world? And the answer is because I'm building it.
Right.
I'm putting it in the schools. I'm helping make sure that we have these things in place, and there's not enough time to talk about it with everybody on social media and do it in the world. Maybe there will be more in the future, but
no, I actually, as you're saying this, is like people are not going to change. There are going to be producers and they're going to be consumers, and that no matter what the tools exist, we have tools right now. Some people are consumers, some people are producers, and we're going to have the exact same thing no matter what tools are available, I would have to imagine.
And I think one of the things I'd like to kind of end on, or at least one of the points from our conversation, would you not teach a 5-year-old to read because they don't need it yet?
Well, I think let me say two things. I appreciate the principle that you're going after. I think that's a terrible example because the duration of time it takes to teach somebody to read and the familiarity with the reading process and value proposition of reading to the baby and then reading to the 3-year-old and then starting rudimentary reading for themselves, the pride that they get when they can read, dog or something like that. And then the challenge of getting to government, like, don't forget there's an N. I remember telling my dad distinctly, I was like, I can spell government. And I got the end. It was really important for me as this little elementary kid that like I had the end, and he like celebrated me. This is an incredibly long and arduous process, which is completely different than me being able to write, never using ChatGPT, and then being like, I got this shit. Like banging some stuff out. Like you can give somebody who's never seen an iPhone and is 18 years old and they can be using it very effectively, like within an hour. So
True.
the technology that we're engaging in now is designed to be completely the opposite of learning how to read, which takes forever. It's designed to be like, boom, you can get this almost instantaneously.
My pushback on that would be that good prompt engineering isn't that 1 hour kid with the phone, never tried it before. It's going to take learning the understandings. I think it's just going to be a different way of learning it, but you're going to learn how to interact in a completely different way. You're going to learn how to ask for what you need and what you want and have to be able to envision an outcome in advance and be able to articulate that, whether that's drawing a circle and saying circle, or it's a advanced grant application for a very specific project that has a lot of technicalities in it. They're going to do that last one. It's going to start to do it well. We're going to have to start teaching them, young to understand the principles of it. So my point on that isn't that it's replacing reading by any stretch. In fact, I think reading is going to become more important earlier on because of then also having to be able to then re-articulate back what they're learning.
I'm with you, man. This is one hell of a journey.
It's going to be interesting.
Like what a time to be alive. I'm just blown away constantly. It's
both awesome and scary at the same time.
Oh my God. But like, what a journey. Like, it is really, you know, what's interesting. I was telling somebody a couple months ago, like, you know why I like what I'm doing so much right now? Because success is not guaranteed and I'm all in. Like, the stakes are high in my personal life and my personal endeavors. Like, I'm all in and I do not have a guarantee that this is going to work out. And that, to me, I'm at the point in my life where I'm thankful for that, where it's like, dude, I don't know. This is going to take everything I got. And I think we need to be that. We need to be present. That draws me into the present day. It makes me question how I'm utilizing every minute of the day. And it's like, man, it's awesome. It's really
That's
cool.
human.
Yeah.
That you're never going to be able to replace that risk, go or no go, with AI.
No.
The human spirit, the American dream, those types of things can't be replaced.
Your reference, the last thing I want to ask you, your reference to Game No Game, was that from a film? You and your friend or whoever you were chatting with was like, Game No Game.
Yeah, it was
like, where did that phrase come from? Because I saw this. I dated this girl in college before I really met my wife.
That was like a TV show or movie that they had. I can't name it.
So it was this foreign film about this couple that was like childhood. They like loved each other, but they were never meant to be. And they would always like challenge each other to like wear their underwear on the outside of their pants when they're in elementary school, or like do these ridiculous things. And they were always like, Game No Game, until the end of the movie, which is like, he was married, he had 3 kids, and she like resurfaced, and then they loved each other so much. One of them dared the other one to go down into a cement form as the cement was pouring, and they were like forever frozen together, dead in the foundation. And then it was like the end of the movie was like them throughout like stars like this, but frozen because they're dead in cement. Very unfortunate.
Okay.
Do you think there was a point when they're like, this was a really dumb idea?
I've seen a lot of movies where I think that and go, how did this make it through as many people as it did? But having been in the industry and having worked with some of the people I have, I go, yeah, I can see how things get through now.
Listen, when you need content, I'm not saying every day is the best content, but you delivered. I love it. Brian, thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you. Honored to be back already for my second time, and I hope you invite me back for a third sometime.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really hope that we can keep touching on this and, you know, have you back as things develop, because it seems like the next year is just going to be a roller coaster of crazy, and having you to just help me understand what the value sets are. And again, it's not like I have to agree with everything. And again, I think the devil's in the details with how it's rolled out, where it's rolled out, but man, there's so much to learn. So thank you.
I may not agree with my own opinions in 6 months. We'll see.
Oh my God. That's a wrap. Thanks for coming, sir.
Thanks.